Hello and welcome. You're about to hear from Dr. Don Lawson in this special presentation on leading edge products. Please note, this video was recorded before 2015 when the company operated under the name GNLD, short for Golden Neolife Diamite. Since 2017, the company has been fully rebranded and is now known simply as Neolife. So whenever you hear GNLD mentioned in this recording, know that it still refers to the same company we now call Neolife, and all the information remains fully relevant today. So sit back and enjoy Leading Edge Products by Dr. Don Lawson.
We have quality people in this business, and one such person is with us tonight. Struck down at the age of 18 with polio, barely 3 months after being married. He should have really been wiped out. He was down, but he was not out. And in the true GNLD spirit, he bounced right back. In fact, he then went on and obtained a degree in theology, a master's and PhD in nutrition. Today, he's still a licensed dietitian in the state of New York. He's also 20 years in the business with GNLD this month. He lives in Los Angeles, but today he decided to spend the time with us here in Port Elizabeth. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Vice President of Sales International, Dr. Don Lawson.
Well, we're going to have a good time. I just bring you greetings from America, greetings from the Scientific Advisory Board, and I have to tell you that I'm excited to be here in Port Elizabeth. But let me talk about how you evaluate the quality of a product in a company. First, you have to evaluate science, and then you have to evaluate nature. And so you would say, well, what have you done in science? And then what have you done with nature? It so happens in both of the categories, we are number one. In science, absolutely remarkable. The first product we started with, Formula 4, 45 years ago, is so remarkable. It started with a hospital study, monitored by medical doctors, paid for by the government, great respect. It's the first nutrition company that started from a science study, credibility study. And then, of course, we've done some other exciting things as we moved along. We created and birthed to the marketplace the first phytonutrient whole food essential oils, the Treanin part of Formula 4. And after we had started this wonderful company, we then started the first scientific advisory board for a nutrition company. Now, it was quite unique how we started with this first scientific advisory board in the industry of nutrition. The founder at that time of the NL, Neolife, of GNLD, was Don Pickett. And Don Pickett decided we needed to have credibility because we started with the first science nutrient. And so at that time, right when he was wanting to start a scientific advisory board, Dr. Arthur First became one of the greatest known scientists in the world. Stanford University is very well respected in the U.S., and the government decided to pay them to head up a team because Dr. First, who is known to be the world's leading toxicologist, he was professor teaching on heavy metal poisons. That sounds like a bad area to get into, you know, heavy metal poisons, that's my expertise, wow. So anyway, he headed up the team of research, and he found he could kill cancer in a living human being. And he created chemotherapy. Now, chemotherapy is vicious, and I'll tell you a little bit about how nasty and terrible it really is, because I've had several conversations with Dr. Arthur First, and yes, he says it is terrible, terrible stuff. But it has been the answer and the rescue and the healing of millions upon millions of people, and it has done more life-saving than any other treatment of any other medicine in the history of mankind. Dr. First deserves a lot of credit for that. He seriously does. Since those years, he has done many other scientific breakthroughs, and guess where he did them? We built a scientific laboratory at GNLD headquarters. He still has his Dr. Arthur First library at our offices. He still has an honorary office there that he is there periodically working in his office. He did his research there, and his becoming the #1 scientist in the world today. He's done most of it at GNLD. So this is something that I'm extremely, extremely proud about. But when Dr. First was asked if he would head up the beginning of a scientific advisory board for this new nutrition company, Don Pickett was shocked when Dr. First said something that he said. He said, I will only be a scientific advisor for a nutrition company if that product is all organic and natural with no preservative. And Don Pickett goes, from a chemical man? from the mother of all chemical men? And so in the process, we were thrilled to have him. He said he knew how much damage there was in synthetics. He knew how much damage there was in preservatives. And he said he didn't want to have anything to do with putting that in the human body. And this is how we started, with such wonderful credibility. Since then, we, through Dr. First, have done many other breakthroughs. We put the only antidote for chemo in the world on the market through Beta-Guard. Dr. First knew the chelator process of bonding to heavy metals and carcinogens and created Beta-Guard, which would go into the system. He said some of the heavy metals that's in chemo will have a half-life of 300 years, and they store in your fat. Well, that means you're going to gas off poisons and lower your whole energy level and just drag through life the rest of your life after chemo, even if you kill the cancer. But if you can get the chemo residue out, you can have a life again. And so he created the chelator, an oral chelator program that will go into the body, attach to the heavy metal poisons and neutralize the carcinogens and carry the heavy metals back out of the system. It's the only antidote to chemo ever made, and it would only be accepted by the world scientist if it was created by the man that created chemo. So it only had one chance to ever exist, and it does exist, and it exists because of Dr. First and GNLD, and it is sold exclusively by GNLD. Aren't you proud of GNLD? Yes. The latest major breakthrough we did in science had to do with the carotenoids. The carotenoids, the rest of the world had accepted beta-carotene as what carotenoids were for about 50 years. And finally, we decided to do the research on it. And guess what? We found nearly 600 carotenoids. We earned the worldwide patent on it because of it. And we were recognized by the rest of the world scientists as the leader in the industry of nutrition in science when we were invited to the New York Academy of Sciences convention to be speakers. For 122 years, they had had conventions where they wouldn't allow a manufacturer to speak or even advertise because they considered manufacturers second-class citizens. The ethic to nutrition manufacturers were they would find a nutrient and then they would try to cheapen it by highly isolating it, then synthesizing it, making it low bioavailability. And Dr. First has even said in the area of synthetics that you should never take more than the label potency of a synthetic because they are toxic. And if you go into therapy amounts of a synthetic vitamin thinking you need more, you can get toxic from the synthetic. He said the bioavailability is low. For example, as I said, limestone is 3%, and other synthetic compounds are very low. And he says he's very happy that the bioavailability of the synthetics are low. He said if the bioavailability of synthetics was high, you'd be in some physical trouble. It'd be toxic. It would hurt you. So we're glad they're low, but they are low. You get very little value. You're wasting your money, and you're risking your health. Stay away from the synthetics. And so in the process, back to the carotenoids, the rest of the world scientists were looking at what was done, and we made the breakthrough. And we were invited to be the key speaker at the 122nd Annual Convention of the New York Academy of Scientists, and the rest of the world scientists said, GNLD is the #1 nutrition company in the world. Wow! Wow! This is serious. Yes, in science, we're #1. But then in nature, it's quite interesting how you look at nature. We are the most organic and the most natural and the purest. We're the first nutrition company to get rid of chemical poison preservatives. But we also don't believe in artificial sweetener, flavor. We don't believe in chemicals, artificial colors. We're into all organic, natural purity. And we're the only one that is to the total organicness as we are. But we're one step further than just organic. We're whole food. Whole food makes a big difference. And let's share what we mean by whole food. Whole food means that in each area of your nutrient need, we're totally complete. Let's explain. For example, the first most important nutrient in your body are the 3 essential oils: omega-3s, omega-6s, and phytosterols. These are the 3 groups. These are the essential groups of oils that your body must have. And you do not have proper nutrition proper balanced life without the 3 essential oil groups. We're the first company to put all 3 out. There's several companies that sell omega-3s, some cheap, bad omega-3s, all the way up to some of them are trying to do a good job with omega-3, but that's all they sell. I only know about 3 or 4 companies that sell omega-6. It's not sold by hardly anybody. And I don't know anyone else that sells phytosterols. But you happen to need all 3 groups. And G and LD and Tree and N are the 3. The Tree and N in formula 4 is omega-3, omega-6 phytosterol. And so in the area of your nutrient need for essential oils, we're totally complete. You move over to protein. Now, of course, we always say protein so people will identify with what we're saying, but we really should change the title of the subject to amino acids. Because when you talk about amino acids, you can actually make a clear explanation of the difference between G and LD and the rest of the marketplace, and you make a clear explanation of your body's need for health. The body needs to have 22 amino acids to build all of the proteins that it makes over your lifetime. Over your lifetime, you will build and make as many as 5,000 different proteins. If you have continually available in your metabolism the 22 amino acids, you can build every protein you need at any time you need it, and you can have perfect regeneration and good health. But our competitors, some of them have just 5 amino acids. Some of the weightlifter, muscle building proteins are the 5 short chain amino acids. And we have people come to us say, do you have the short chain amino acids? I want to be a strong muscle builder athlete. Well, of course we have all the short chain amino acids because we have all the amino acids. We even have all the middle chain amino acids and all the long chain amino acids because we have all of the amino acids. And so you start to find that we beat our competitors in several respects. But when they sell just a few amino acids, they can be cheaper. Most of the proteins on the market are 7 amino acids, 9 amino acids, and they're incomplete, and they don't satisfy, and they don't build for good health. And so all of a sudden, if you start to see the difference between the price of a 7 amino acid product versus the total complete 22 amino acid, you start to get a basis of comparison to see why you should be taking the 22. Now there's a few other areas of explanation that I guess I'll take the time to do, and that is that, for example, we sell our 22 amino acids in the state of free-formed isolate. Now let's talk about what each of these 22 amino acids being delivered to you as free-formed isolate means. We're the only company in the world that does, and this is very important. If you eat a protein molecule which may have 5 separate amino acids that build it, and there may be 60 or 70 of the combinations of those 5 to hold that whole protein together, before you can break that protein down to pull those amino acids out so you can actually rebuild them into something you really do need in your body, you have to have 4 stages of perfect digestion. You have to have strong hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Most researchers have said that the average population is 40% of our population is deficient in hydrochloric acid. So that starts off a bad trend of being able to break the protein down so you can use those amino acids. The second step is your pancreas secretes several enzymes. One is called protease. Protease is what attaches to those amino acids and slides them out of a denatured protein that was denatured from the hydrochloric acid in your stomach, if you have any hydrochloric acid in your stomach. It slides those amino acids out to bring them out into singles. But then you have to have them into a proteolytic converter and tie them into a polypeptide chain. Those are the 4 stages they have to go to before that amino acid is taken out of a protein and is ready now for you to put it back together. Well, in those 4 stages is where most people's problems are. So therefore, when you take a whole protein molecule in, you can't turn it around into being benefit to you. And you try and try, but you fail and fail because you are broken down in those stages. When we deliver to you the 22 free-formed isolate amino acids, we have already gone past all of the first 4 stages of digestion. We deliver to you the amino acid in the stage of its metabolism where all your body has to do is put them back together the way you want to build things. You even make your own hydrochloric acid out of amino acids, if you can get them broken down to the correct amino acids, you can start up your whole digestive system again. And the only way you can do that is somebody's got to deliver to you the free-formed isolates so you can regenerate the cycle and start it back up again. And so you start to see the differences in the products. We are the only all organic. Now, when I say all organic, it's important to know that some of our competitors cheat a little. And that is the strongest amino acid of all the amino acids is called methionine. Methionine is the key to power in a protein product. And I have looked on most of the labels of competitors to start to say they're strong like G and LD, and I read right on the label, synthetic amino acid, D-methionine. And you start to say, well, my goodness, what does that mean? Well, the three greatest scientists have made comments about synthetics, and let me quote each of them. The first one is Dr. Linus Pauling, won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry and Vitamin C. Genius scientist. He says that when you take synthetic ascorbic acid, you immediately have 50% loss in metabolism because of the synthetic condition. You do not have enzymes that connect to synthetics correctly. Dr. Lester Packer, the world's authority in vitamin E. He says that synthetic vitamin E has an immediate 1/3 loss because it's synthetic. Immediately, 1/3 is of no value. Your enzymes cannot handle them correctly. But protein is the worst. And the great quote is Dr. Arthur First again. The three greatest scientists in this last couple decades. Dr. First says that synthetic amino acids have the absolute impossibility for your enzymes to connect to them, and you get zero metabolism out of a synthetic amino acid. Our competitors put synthetic methionine in to try to compete with our power. We're the most powerful, potent protein on the market, and they try to compete with us by putting a cheap synthetic methionine in. And so we find that a lot of people don't want to have a college degree just to buy a product. And so if you don't know how to read a label, you've got to find a company you trust. And this is part of what I'm trying to express now in tonight's talk, and that is that you may not ever want to come on up to the PhD in nutrition, but you've got to be convinced, hopefully in this 1 hour, that this is the company to trust. You've got to finally come around to trusting somebody. So let's get into the reasons why you're going to trust G and LD. And so you start to see the differences there. We are the only whole food amino acid, total protein building powder on the world's market, all organic and natural, no chemicals, poisons, or preservatives. This is seriously the product you should take. One more example, and then I'll get into saying something. I'm still just in my introduction. I don't know if you knew, I haven't said anything yet. I'm just setting the foundation to actually get into something. But I'll give one more example before we really start the talk. E, vitamin E. Vitamin E is a famous vitamin and so easy and simple and comfortable. Everybody's heard the name vitamin E for years, and they just think it's okay. In fact, it's not a big Latin word. Most people can spell E. Can you spell E? See how easy E is? The problem is E is actually seriously complicated. Let's talk about it. Vitamin E, first of all, was misnamed. Do you know vitamin E should have been named E complex? There are 8 vitamin E's, 8 different molecules of vitamin E. 4 of them are called tocopherols. There's an alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And 4 of them are called tocotrienols. And there's an alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Now, our competitors have decided to sell you alpha tocopherol 1. It ends up that alpha tocopherol is about the cheapest to be made, and so they make the highest profit margin on that one. And it's interesting that they've chosen to sell the one that they make the highest profit margin on. The rest of the competitors only use the alpha, and most of them have gone into making it synthetic alpha tocopherol. You can see the signet before alpha tocopherol called DL. You read your labels, you'll find it. That's synthetic alpha tocopherol. There was a study that was produced and printed about 2 years ago. It was a study done on gamma tocopherol. And when the scientists, the outside world scientists, not the GNLD scientists, the outside world scientists are far behind the GNLD scientists. When they finally got done with the study on gamma tocopherol, they said gamma tocopherol is far better, far stronger than alpha tocopherol. And in fact, they said that alpha tocopherol, when you take it with gamma, alpha is even better than alpha by itself. So 2 years ago, the scientists said, the way you should take vitamin E is an alpha gamma. Alpha gamma is the way you should take E. Now, since they told all the manufacturers, all the competitors, everybody in the world, the way you should take E is alpha gamma, have any of you seen an alpha gamma E? They don't make it. Why? Gamma is very expensive. If they were to add gamma to their cheap alpha, their profit margin would go down. They're prepared to look you right in the face and say, we're going to let your health stay at risk so our profit margin can stay high. A company with that ethic, don't give them any of your money. Never give them any of your money. If you motivate them with a reward system of giving them money, they'll say, oh, they like that junk. Let's see if we can make it worse next time. And that's the direction it's going to go. Don't do it. So what you find is there is only one company. I forget the name right now. Oh, GNLD. There's one company in the world today that complies with alpha gamma. But we don't just comply with alpha gamma, we have alpha beta gamma delta, and then we have all 4 tocotrienols as well. We are the only all 8 E factor E on the market in the world today. We're the most potent, most aggressive, most versatile, most organic and natural. We even do several other wonderful things just to polish off the edges. We add a drop of lecithin to each capsule, which makes it water miscible. It pre-emulsifies the oil carrier, and this causes you to get 100% access to each molecule of the oil. The other competitors that you sell you oil vitamins that haven't emulsified it, the oils will clump. When they clump, they stick in patches like an oil slick to the intestine and to other areas, and you get very low percentage of that oil product ever to your liver for it to go through the metabolic process. Clumped oils give you difficulty in bioavailability, and that whole process is eliminated with GNLD. Just an extra little benefit. And it was interesting that the very first all preservative-free gel cap made by Banner Gelatin in Los Angeles, we were the first company to order that gelatin sheet to encapsulate our vitamin E, and we put the first preservative-free gel cap in the world. It was on our E. Later we have all the rest of them with the preservative gels, but that was the first. I have gotten acquainted with Banner Gelatin in Los Angeles and call them periodically and talk to them. And I asked them how their sales of this preservative gelatin is doing. I have ulterior motives, of course, but I'm asking them above board. I'm not hiding anything, and they give me the answer. They say, well, there's only a few other companies that have been ordering it. We've been ordering it for years now. Says most of the rest of the companies out there are still ordering the cheaper chemical preservative gel cap. Now that makes me feel very discouraged about the rest of the industry. They can have the preservative-free one if they want to. They just have to pay a little bit more for it. And they're not prepared to clean up their product and give you a toxic-free product just because of the business they're in of making a profit. They're in the business of nutrition to make money, and they don't care about you. I know they don't. All they got to do is just move down one line lower on the order sheet and order it right. And they choose not to because of their profit margin. This is what's out there in the industry. If it wasn't for GNLD, I wouldn't be that happy with the industry of nutrition. But GNLD, all by ourselves, has saved the reputation of the entire industry. Wow! Aren't you proud of GNLD? Yes, yes, yes. So we're heading towards phytosterols, but let's talk first about an article in a Newsweek magazine. It says a new study raises fears about the risk for millions of women. It says beyond hormone therapy. This is the hormone replacement therapy they're talking about. Another article here was in Time magazine. The Time magazine article talks about the truth about hormones. Hormone replacement therapy, riskier than advertised. What's a woman to do? Goes on into several exciting things about it. Hormone replacement therapy. Many women are fully into it, and it's been represented as the blessing. But they have found out, look out, ladies. Let's tell you about the study that our government did. It's a factual study that you cannot refute, because they took 87,000 nurses and tracked them for 20 years. This is a multi-million dollar program. It is so powerful, nobody can refute it. This is the fact of the matter. 87,000 nurses tracked for 20 years. They say here that they figure from when they started hormone replacement therapy, they have caused over 14 million cases of cancer. Whoa, this isn't little numbers here. Now, they go into other statements about the claims of hormone replacement therapy that appear not to be correct. They say that it's good for your bones, reversing osteoporosis. They now have a study that shows that they took one other food factor that takes calcium out of your bones. As you know, sugar will suck calcium off the bones and melt the myelin sheath. Vinegar will be bad on the calcium. Tomatoes, red meat, alcohol. Acids pull the calcium out of your bones and off of your nerve tissue. And so you need to get rid of acids. But they took one acid only. Now all the sugars and alcohols and vinegars, they will go right down towards your kidneys and try to get out of you real quick. So you only have approximately an hour, hour and a half of negative from those acid sources. But red meat is an acid protein, and protein holding the acid will allow that particular acid to stay in the system like 6 hours, and then you can get some serious damage from that type of acid. Red meat is an enemy for arthritis, osteoporosis, and that condition. And so what they did was they took this group of ladies, and half of them went on hormone replacement therapy, and the other half stopped eating red meat. 10 years later, the ladies that stopped eating red meat had far better bones than the ladies on hormone replacement therapy. Isn't this shocking, surprising information to you? And it's irrefutable. And it goes on into falsities about heart protection and youth. The one study shows that hormone replacement therapy stops doing benefit for a lady around age 65. I was at a meeting when this article was released, and there was a lady there, it was age 84. She said she'd been taking hormone replacement therapy from way back in the beginning, and she was very upset that at around age 65 it wasn't doing anything for her. Taking it clear on up to age 84, and at age 65 it wasn't doing anything for her. And so you start to find out, what is a woman to do? Well, you obviously need your hormones up, and you need them balanced. Up and balanced is a key, and very, very important. The very first study done 45 years ago was with a group of ladies with chronic fatigue syndrome, Epstein-Barr, hormone problems were off, estrogen level was down so low they weren't having a monthly cycle anymore. They were not wanting to be a feminine person. It was a disaster situation, and they went on to our program that turned out to be Trianin, and sure enough, their monthly cycle started up again. There was not excessive bleeding. We had a proper respect for femininity. They wanted to be the partner in a marital relationship again. They were able to laugh and be happy, and the estrogen levels were up over 167% in that fast of a time. We've had other animal studies since then that have established the ratios and numbers as well, and we found out that the adrenal tissue puts out more hormone, and the others do as well. And so what we look at in the Trianin for the hormones is phytosterols. Your hormones are the power to your life. They're what give you your personality. They're what makes you the person you are, to do what you want to do and to be able to. And so you take a look at hormones do not come from power of positive thinking. Hormones come from a physical food link, a physical food chain, and it happens to be phytosterols. And when you get the phytosterols into your system, the first thing it does is it makes the local hormone. The local cell hormone is a prostaglandin. Now, it doesn't go anywhere, it stays in that cell. And what it does, it is the controller for communication in the cell. So you get some Trianin, phytosterol to your ovary, and there you build a little prostaglandin. The prostaglandin can read the DNA in the cell. The DNA of each cell is a blueprint of the cell and what that cell is supposed to do. The blueprint of the DNA in the ovary is a recipe for making estrogen. And the recipe for estrogen is 5 amino acids, 3 vitamins, and 2 minerals. So the prostaglandin says, okay, let's gather up these amino acids, gather up this protein, and the vitamins and the minerals. It's okay now, mix two amino acids together, put in a vitamin, mix 3 more amino acids. It's okay, now drop the minerals in there, now cook it for 3 days at body temperature. And poof, out comes estrogen. And the way you can make the right amount of estrogen is have your phytosterols. This is your source. And all of a sudden, life is fun, life is happy, you love your husband, you're going to have lots of children, everything's going to be wonderful. And so what you find is that you need the phytosterols. So you get to your adrenal gland, and you get the phytosterols in there. They make the local prostaglandin. They pick up the recipe for making adrenaline. Poof, out comes adrenaline. Power you up, you jump out of bed, you work hard all day, you work better than anybody else does. You never get tired. When the day is over, you're not tired. The other guys are dragging home, and you go home and say, honey, let's go out to eat, swing around, let's dance a while. Okay, now tomorrow night we're going to have our GNLD meeting. You know, you go into business, you build a business on the side, you're happy, you're healthy, you still have time. You're not tired. In the evening time, you still have time to love your sweetheart. And then your adrenal gland has the ability to shut off. And when you shut off your adrenal gland, you can sleep. Oh, man, can you sleep? You are so good at sleeping. You get so rested up. You wake up in the morning and say, I must have slept a week. I feel so good. And you get your adrenal gland behaving, and you're powerful, and you sleep well, and life is different. And it comes from phytosterols. There's a hormone maker in your brain called your pituitary gland. It's about the size of a bean in your brain, and it secretes over 500 hormones, and it controls your moods. And the moods of the pituitary will help you be able to cry. And you know, crying is very important. Being able to cry shows a level of compassion and understanding. It lets you get to the depth of your heart. And you can't cry without your pituitary gland working properly. And it causes you also to be able to laugh, and it causes you to be happy, and causes you to be satisfied with yourself. How many want to be happy? How many like to be satisfied with yourself? Yes. Would you like to laugh? Yes. I won't ask you if you want to cry. But some people need to cry. And your pituitary's got to be powered up. You get phytosterols in your system and get that pituitary working right. And when you start to see what we've got here, it's amazing. In fact, when I look at the manual page, I'm going to tell you a secret now. This is the page in our manual on Tree and Inn. Do you see the yellow? That's my speech. All I'm telling you is what's in the manual. I'm serious. If you read the manual, I wouldn't have a job. Let's read a few of these ingredients in phytosterol. In Tree and Inn, in Formula 4, we have beta-cytosterol, gamma-oryzanol, stigmasterol, campesterol, octacosanol. Phew, you didn't want to know that, did you? You get out your encyclopedia, you start to read what these basic phytosterols do and see the power that you get in your system from it, and then you'll realize what we have. And when you realize that you need omega-3s, omega-6s, and the phytosterols, and then when you realize that we're the only company that's making them available to you, and we're making them available to you all organic and natural and chemical free, you have to say, wow, about GNLD. This is the company. We're interested in you, interested in your health, in your life, in your results, and we're the only company that is. Wow. Well, there's another article I have. It's on the newspaper here. It says, antibiotic overuse can silence medicine's big guns. Well, antibiotics have been medicine's big guns. And about 70 years ago, they created the first antibiotic, and they killed a bacteria or a virus, and they said, you know, we're going to sterilize the world and nobody will ever get sick again. We have found the answer. Well, it sounded like a good sales pitch to me. Everybody would want that to be true. The trouble is 70 years later, all those bugs that they were going to kill have become super bugs. The United Nations World Health Organization assigned to infectious contagious diseases. They've been working on a new tuberculosis that's incurable. the new tuberculosis is in epidemic stage and it's incurable. They're working now with 4 medications at the same time, experimenting to try to get it to work, and it says it's been failing. It's been failing. And so it's going to be in the news soon. He said soon it's going to break to the publicity that there's an epidemic of a tuberculosis that's incurable. And so we've got some other things to look out for besides just AIDS and the other situations. As you know, I'm building towards our carotenoids as an answer. But before I get off into the carotenoids as an answer, there was a lady here that was telling me, where are you? There you are. A tuberculosis story. If you can keep it short and come up and talk real loud, come on up here a second and get in the microphone and let's do a real good job.
My name is Sophie. I'm from Port Elizabeth. My brother had tuberculosis now about 2 years ago, and we started him on a program of carotenoid complex, cruciferous, and flavonoid with omega-3, Calmax zinc, respiratory formula, as well as the wheat germ oil and the vitamin A and D. He was in hospital at the time, also on protein, of course, and within 2 months after starting him on the program, he had a re-X-ray and they couldn't find any sign of the tuberculosis. So we're very excited about that.
There was a healing of the tuberculosis. Isn't that fantastic? So what you find is that they now can do DNA study, and they went back to the bubonic plague and the black plague, and they dug up these mass graves, and they took a look at the DNA, and they found out that people that died in the plagues had low immunity. Then they went to the graveyard and saw some tombstones that said the death was about 10 years after the plague. They dug them up, and they found that they had strong immunities. And they found out that the people that survived the plagues, it took nearly a third of the continent, the people that survived it were the ones that had strong immunities. Now, the United States government said, we need an immune stimulating factor. They asked all the drug companies, chemical companies, please make an immune stimulating factor. We need it for autoimmune diseases, and we're going to need it to replace antibiotics. It's a must. Nobody was able to produce an autoimmune stimulator. Nobody. It hasn't been done. They can't do it. When we did the original research on carotenoids and went beyond beta-carotene to 600 carotenoids, our carotenoid complex is the only product that has the entire spectrum of the carotenoids in the human food chain, and our next best competitor only has 1. My. Dr. First said, we have found an immune stimulating factor, and the United States government said, what? If you found a stimulator, this is seriously important. And so our government, because it was Dr. First, he deserves some respect, our government paid millions and millions of dollars for a proof study. And in the proof study, they found out that 3 carotenoid a day for 20 days could build the immune system 37%. My goodness, they said that's enough, and this became the first product in the world that can say it is an immune stimulating factor, a dream come true, what we've been hunting for, the answer for plagues and epidemics, the answer against the loss of antibiotics, the answer for you. It is absolutely thrilling to see what we have here in the carotenoids. I had one lady that had muscular dystrophy. Her muscles started to get so weak that finally, after being in the wheelchair for a year or so, after degrading, she lost control of her kidneys and bowels, and they had to put her 100% in bed. And she was just about going to be finished. She started with about 6 a day, and it was about 2 months she regained control of her kidneys and bowels and was able to be wheelchair again and get around the house and be so much better. About 4 months after that, somebody came in and caught her with her wheelchair in the kitchen, standing at the sink doing dishes. And they couldn't believe it. She was up on her feet doing the dishes. Then somewhere around 8 more months went by, and she was so bored of being around home, she took a part-time job out of the house. Wow! Wow! Now this is what can happen to your immune system, what happens to your health when your immune system comes up. all the autoimmune diseases today of muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, palsies, Lou Gehrig's, Alzheimer's, diabetes, arthritis. You go through disease after disease. It's autoimmune. When an autoimmune breakdown happens, you can never be cured. That disease is in you the rest of your life. You can hope for medicine that will plateau it, hope for medicine that will kind of therapy, monitor it, like insulin for diabetes or whatever. But you can't be cured. You just said you're finished. But they have found if you build your immune system up, you can put the disease in remission. It's still there. It's not cured. And if it's in remission, you can live a normal life, maybe keep it in remission the rest of your life, live a normal length of life, die of another cause, natural cause. But the disease you have not be your tragedy. Now, obviously, if you let your immune system go down again, those diseases are there. They wake up, they run on you again, so you've got to be purist for the rest of your life. But what's wrong with being a purist and being healthy? Come on, get a life. Get into the carotenoids and get yourself well and stay well, and you can. It's absolutely incredible what we have here in the carotenoids. Now, the nice thing is we've improved on the carotenoids. We have gone from being able to extract 38% of the carotenoid oils out of the fruits and vegetables to now we can take out 98% of the nutrient factor. And did you know the quality of power that's in carotenoids? We take 100 kilos of fruits and vegetables. You know how big that is? 100 kilos of fruits and vegetables to make one 90 capsule bottle. One bottle. One 90 capsule bottle has the nutrient quality of carotenoids of 100 kilos of fruits and vegetables. This is serious power that's in here and effect like you can't not believe. The new carotenoids are 8 times stronger. Now, even though they're 8 times stronger, we can't multiply 37 by 8. You can't go above 100%. And we haven't paid the money to do the study because it's millions and millions of dollars. We haven't paid the money to do the study to give you the new immune increase number. So here's how we have to tell you the way the story goes. The original carotenoid gave 37% in 20 days. The new carotenoid is 8 times stronger. We can't give a number because we haven't discovered the number. We can't make one up. That's not right. So we have to go through the 2-step stage, but you need to get into them. I'll give one more testimony on the carotenoids and then I'll move to something else. The lady in Eugene, Oregon, Bob Pearson, young Bob Pearson, has a big team, and he's the one that has this lady. Bob Pearson has collected testimonials from all over the states. He actually goes to different cities and interviews people and have them sign their testimonies. He has a big book of testimonial healings. And this one lady was 84 years of age. She was a bookkeeper. And the company liked her work, and she was just a good worker, so they kept her on. At 84, she was still working, doing the books for this little company. But her eyes are getting worse and worse with macular degeneration. That's when the back of the eyeball starts to deteriorate. It's the #1 cause of blindness. And she was getting worse and worse. Her eyes were so bad that the glasses, they said they were Coca-Cola bottle glasses. And she one day had a horrible report that she cried and cried about. The doctor did her eye study, and he said, you have finally gotten your eyes so deteriorated that your rating was 20/2200. 20/2200 means you're legally blind. And she could still see if she got right on top of things, but it was legal blind. That's how bad she was. He said, you're almost finished with her eyes. Somebody then found her for carotenoids. She started with 9 a day. Now that's a lot. They're not toxic. Not toxic. She started with 9 a day. 2 months later, she went back for another physical exam, and he says, well, for some reason, your condition is plateaued. In fact, I'm going to give you a little bit better prescription, lesser power prescription than you had before. And he says, your eyes have stabilized somehow. I don't know how. She continued with her carotenoids. It was 4 months later when she went back to the eye doctor. And he looked at her eyes and says, what in the world is happening here? He says, I can't believe it. He says, your eyes are 20/20. I'm not even going to have you wear glasses, and your macular degeneration is gone. Wow. She reads her Bible in small print with no glasses anymore. This is absolutely incredible. Isn't that a wow? That's a wow. These carotenoids are the #1 item for your eyes, for macular degeneration, for cornea glaucoma, cataracts, for pressure in the eyeball, for the tissue of the eyeball. The #1 thing in the world for your eyes. And I see some glasses out there. The #1 product in the world for your eyes is carotenoids. If you took the carotenoids only for your eyes, you would get proper value for money spent. But that's just touching the tip of what it can do for you and how powerful it is. It is the #1 greatest nutrient put on the market in the world today, and it's exclusively GNLD. Aren't you proud of GNLD? Yes. For sure. Let's do a little bit of GR control. GR control, glycemic response, the answer for diabetes, the answer for weight loss. When I say the answer for weight loss, they've compared with some of these fancy protein diets and some of these high-fat reducing diets. They did a high-fat reducing diet, and it was monitored and controlled so that it could be an arm's-length science study. And they found out with the reduction of calories for the length of time they had reduced the calories, that these people on that diet lost 2.4% of their body weight. So they were satisfied at 2.4% of their body weight, but then they took the next control group, same amount of calories, same length of time, and they did it on our reduced carbohydrate diet. Reduced sugar, reduced carbohydrate diet is what this is. It's a reduced carbohydrate diet. And in the same calorie eating over the same period of time, the people lost 17.6% of their body weight. See the difference? The different diets. One diet, the low-fat diet, they lost a little over 2% of the body weight. The low-carbohydrate diet, they lost over 17% of the body weight. It works. It's fantastic. Now, I decided, I'm not a big person, so some people say, well, you don't even need to lose any weight. But I thought that if I could lose about 10 pounds, now pardon me for not converting that to kilos, I just thought if I could lose 10 pounds, I'd be perfect. I went to Carol and said, if I could lose 10 pounds, I'd be perfect. She said, no, it'd take a few other things besides 10 pounds to make you perfect. And I said, well, as soon as I lose the 10 pounds, I'll be nicer to you also. And so I'm heading towards perfect. But so we were just about ready to go on our trip to the Philippines and Japan when our order came. And so I said, well, it was 4 days before we were supposed to go. And I said, well, I'd like to start on the diet. And we got it. And Carol said, it's only 4 days. He says, let's wait till we come back from Japan. And so I said, no, I want to start right now. That's the difference between a man and a woman. So in the process, I started right now. And I come to her 4 days later and says, honey, you're right. I shouldn't have started yet. It hasn't kicked in. I didn't know for sure what to expect, but I knew it hadn't started being a weight loss program yet because I said, I don't have a headache, and I'm not tired, and I'm not hungry, and I'm not sassy and naughty, and just haven't entered into a diet yet. And then I went and got on the scales, and I'd lost 10 pounds. I can't believe it. Poof, 10 pounds in 4 days. Absolutely amazing. I was so shocked at the results. And then, of course, if a person has a tendency to be negative, there's no cure for that. And so after I had lost my 10 pounds in 4 days, I said, oh, this program's too good. What am I going to do with the rest of the product? I didn't want to take it. I might disappear. We have had such results. It's incredible. I have a little chart here from Chuck and Charlotte Shelton. I don't know if you know them. They're 2 diamond directors in Texas in the U.S. Chuck Charlotte's been in the diamond, 2 diamond. They've been multimillionaires for years. They're not as rich as Charlie and Alta, but it's all right. In the process, they treat Don and Carol Lawson real nice. They have ranches and retirement homes, and they have a big 6-bedroom, huge places just to retreat up in the Colorado mountains. It's beautiful up there, way up there. You can hardly breathe. They have oxygen if you need it to breathe in there. And when we go there, they just pick us up, they travel us, they buy us lunch, they buy us dinner, they fix us picnics, they take us up in the high mountains, they treat us to everything, we pay nothing, they do everything for us. It's nice to be friends to rich people. But Chuck started living the high life, being wealthy, And so he started enjoying his big steak dinners and his bottle of wine with dinner, and boom, 3 artery bypass surgery, and boom, diabetes set in on him, and boom, his health goes down. And he was heading for a disaster. He went to his doctor, and the doctor said, Chuck, you're in such bad shape, in such bad health. He says, you could die driving home from this doctor's office. You could die driving home. You are a wreck, a mess. So Chuck started on GR control. And he gave me this chart here. In his first 2 weeks, he lost 14 pounds. By week 8, he lost 34 pounds. I called him before we left on this trip. He lost 49 pounds. While Charlotte had been helping administer the GR control to him, she lost 30 pounds herself. So Chuck and Charlotte are very happy. Chuck lost 7 notches on his belt, and Charlotte lost 6 inches on her hips. Men and women just measure differently, that's, I guess. But the health standard is the key, and that is his glucose, which was way up. The insulin wasn't taking care of it. His diabetes was in trouble. 130 is the line. I don't know if you have the same numbers here as we do. 130 is the line for diabetes and sugar being out of control. And his sugar went down to 106 with no diabetic problems, no medicine, no problem whatsoever. Diabetes is fully under control with no medicine. His triglyceride was up at a horrible number of 385. That's a bad number. And it went down to 83, which is actually lower than normal. His cholesterol was way out of sight, come down to 151, which is lower than normal. The doctor was he went to see that doctor, and the doctor gave him a physical exam, and he brought him into the office. He says, Chuck, he says, I don't know what happened, but he says, you're in such good shape and good health. He says, I don't know when you're going to die. It's just absolutely a thrill to see how well that program works. It is a dream come true. It's the answer for diabetes. I'll give you one diabetic testimony. There was a lady in Jacksonville, Florida. Pardon me for giving these names. You probably don't know all about America, I'm sure. And she had diabetes so bad. Remember, 130 is the line, and she was in the 900s. She was heading dialysis. She had sores in her toes that weren't healing. She was losing her eyes. The insulin, she was taking 3 120 units injections a day, which is a huge amount, would not phase it. Wouldn't phase it. She started with GR control. It was about the 7th day she went to the hospital with insulin overdose toxic shock. This was serious. They called me and I said, I don't know her, never heard of her, never saw her in my life. That was a joke. That's a legal joke. You always got to be frightened when somebody goes to the hospital on your product. 3 days later, they released her from the hospital with 1 20-unit injection a day. She went in with 3 120-unit injections. 3 days later, she left with 1 20-unit injection, and it was holding her sugar below 130. It worked. The 20 units was working. The 360 units was not working. 1 week on GR control had that big of effect on her diabetes. We have had diabetes all over the country where people, the doctors are taking them off their insulin, still monitoring them because they still do have diabetes. You're not cured, you're just controlled. And it is the diabetes answer. You know anybody with diabetes, you've got to get them on the GR control. It's just a must. It is absolutely wonderful. A weight loss program, as far as a business is concerned, in the United States last year, all the vitamins and minerals and cells were $20 billion, and all the weight loss cells was $50 billion. Weight loss is 2.5 times bigger business than the total rest of the company. If you want to actually make this a business, promote that, because it's so easy. When you're in the regular nutrition business, you don't know if somebody's walking past you, they have a tumor in their liver or something. You just don't know that. But when you're selling weight loss, you can go down to the shopping mall, you can see your customers walking all over. You can see them coming, you can see them going. And you go up to them and they can't deny it. You say, you need this product. They can't say they don't. They know they do. And the interesting thing is they want the product. They are the best buyers, the biggest buyers. They know what they want. They will buy it. They will try it. They've tried 100 other things. They're going to try 100 more. If you don't get them on our program tomorrow, within the next 10 years, they'll have tried 100 other programs. They will have bought them. They want to pay for them. They have the money. They will do it. They want to do it. You just got to get in the line. Bump in and get in the line. Okay, I'm next. You've done 100 others. I'm next. Do me next. It works. I'm so happy I found one that works. It works. It works. And so this is the process. This is what's going to happen for you. You're going to absolutely love what GR control is and what it does. Let's tap a little bit into flavonoid and cruciferous. I enjoy talking on cruciferous because here again is a product that we're the only in the world. And it is so important and valuable for you. Cruciferous are the foods that are pungent tasting that people don't like. Brussels sprouts and sassy radishes and spicy items. And you find that the United States government found that you should be eating, the research said 8 servings a week, but the United States government said to simplify it on their pyramid food chart is the perfect way to eat, that you need 1/2 cup serving a day, which comes out to 7 a week, and the study was 8. So the government took 1 off that they shouldn't have. But they say you're supposed to eat 1/2 cup a day. Then they did a multi-million-dollar survey across the nation, and they found out that the average person consumes approximately 1/2 cup's worth of cruciferous foods a week. You are 6 days of 7 days deficient in cruciferous compounds. And so most people say, well, so what? I don't like the way they taste anyway. They are the items that block hormone-caused cancers. The cruciferous compounds stop breast cancer, vaginal cancer, prostate cancer. Here's how they do it. On these particular hormone-related tissues, you have a gene called the oncogene. The oncogene goes click, 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 click. When it's clicking one day, it says grow, 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 and then it goes click, divide. You get cell division. Then it goes click, grow, 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 then click, divide. And that's a normal, healthy process. But there's a receptor post on these sex-related hormone glands tissues. And when one of these receptor posts gets hit with certain carcinogens or bad hormone, bad testosterone, bad estrogen, it will freeze like a hammer on that receptor post and lock the oncogene from tilting. And it locks it down on divide, 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 divide. And you get cluster growth. You get multiple of 4, multiple of 6. It's now a tumor. And the cluster growth keeps going. You have tumor, bigger tumor, bigger tumor, bigger tumor. And so you don't want that receptor post to lock down. It is a cruciferous compound that will lock on that post and prevent anything from shoving it down. It will not let estrogen or testosterone or carcinogens lock it down. Cruciferous compounds stop the oncogene from freezing, lock down on the divide section. That is the number one thing to stop tumors in breast, vaginal, prostate. It's the number one protector of cancer. Of the 2 most dreaded cancers on earth, it's the number one protector against it. You need the correct amount. In each of our cruciferous tablets, we have the amount of cruciferous compounds in 1/2 cup serving. You need 1 a day to fill the government's basic need for your body's health, and you need 1 every day. Now, the interesting thing is that we have added something else to the cruciferous for ladies that's serious important. We added the substance called genistin. Genistin is found in the soybean as a extra factor out of isoflavones. They have a whole line of isoflavones. One of them is called genistin. Genistin has done something with breast cancer that nothing else has ever done. It's a dream come true. What happened is when you get a little tumor in the breast of cluster growth, a little line of malignancy grows in it, a little thread of cancer. They took the tumors out with a little thread of cancer, soaked them in a test tube of genistin. The genistin ate the malignancy out, and that is wonderful. All by itself, that's enough. But the second thing it did was even as wonderful, and that is that genistin released the oncogene for the tumor growth and released it so that the oncogene will go click, 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 click again, and took all of the cells that were tumor cells and cluster growth cells and took each single one of them separately, returned them back to mammary tissue with normal cell division, and they blended in as healthy tissue. That is something nothing else has ever done. It is so important, so wonderful. Every lady in this room needs a minimum of 1 cruciferous every day the rest of your life. If you have something beginning in your breast you don't know about, just little, you get that cruciferous in there with the genesin, and it go into there, find that little tiny tumor, eat that little thread of malignancy out, turn that mass back into normal breast tissue. That breast doesn't have to have a lump on it or a dip in it. It can be cosmetically perfect and healthy. This is absolutely fantastic. Aren't you glad somebody has cruciferous with genesin? Exclusively G and LD. There's an epidemic currently of prostate problems. It is absolutely a disaster out there with men with prostate. Everywhere I go, now there's an enzyme comes out of the prostate, the measurement's called PSA. Now I don't know the numbers here, but the numbers in the States is you go up to 4. If we cross the line of 4, you got to do something. Cross the line of 4, you got to either have to take the testes, you got to get the female injection, or you got to put the radiation pellets in the prostate, or you got to cut the whole thing out, or you got to do something. Cross the line of 4, you got to do something. You need to go get your blood work done and see what your PSA score is. Every man here needs to get your blood work done and find out what your PSA number is. Now it can be up by 4. It doesn't mean to scare you to death. If the next time you do your blood work it's staying steady and not moving. If it's not moving, you're okay. But if it keeps going up, you're in trouble. And you've got to do something, because between 4 and 6 you have an enlarged prostate, your plumbing stops working, your masculinity starts to stop working, and all of a sudden you're in trouble with a large, hard prostate. It goes from 6 to 8, and it is cancer. You go up to 10, it is metastasizing, and you got about 5 years for either the colon, the liver, or the bones to finish you off. And you've got to be serious about this and don't play around with it at all. Now in the process, I have several testimonies because it's a big deal. I'll just tell you the best. You just want the best one, don't you? You don't want 100 little ones to be here till midnight. Let's just give you the best one. Donna and Vince Calora, friends of ours, senior citizens. I used to think old is old, but now I'm an old man myself. And so old isn't old anymore. But Donna and Vince Calora are good friends of ours. They live in a state called Nebraska, in the city named Lincoln, Nebraska. And they've been doing our business, and Donna came to me privately and she said, you know, Vince has been getting up and going potty 6 times a night. And she says that he is not interested in marital responsibility anymore. And so she was telling a few things, and so I said to Vince, I said, Vince, you got to go get tested. So he went to the doctor finally, and about 4 days later, the nurse called and said she wanted both Vince and Donna to come into the doctor's office. Well, when they say that, you know something's wrong. And so they went in, and the doctor said that his PSA was 28. The doctor said, you're basically finished. That was a nice way to say it, you know. You're finished. Oh. And he says, but we can do some things to buy some time. He says, first of all, I need to do total radical surgery. And he said, what is total radical surgery? And he says, well, we take the testes and we take everything else, and we hook a tube to your kidney and tie it to your leg. It will sac by your ankle. And, you know, everything's gone. And Vince, as horrible of a story as this is, Vince said, well, I'm just going to die. He wasn't going to have that surgery. There's no way he was going to have that surgery. But he was taking death over the surgery. And this is where it was. Well, Donna started him with 12 carotenoid, 12 flavonoid, and 12 cruciferous. And that's power. That's serious. So he went back about 2 months later, and the PSA score had gone down to 16. The doctor said, well, I've never seen a PSA score reversed like that, but he says 16, still terminal. And so the doctor was fighting for him to die. Oh, well, my humor isn't very good at this point. So about 4 months later, still on 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, he went back, and it was down about 8. And then I kind of lost track of tracking them because, you know, we just go around the world and see more people and pray for more people and help. and they had kind of stepped back a little in our direct communication. So we were on the way home from Japan one time, and we dropped into Hawaii to do the Hawaii meeting. You know, somebody has to do the Hawaii meeting. And so we took our turn, and we had to do the meeting in Hawaii. So we land there in Hawaii, and we go to the meeting. There was a bunch of flowers there, and I says, oh boy, I'm going to get some flowers. You know, I'm the key speaker. I should get the flowers. But they didn't give me the flowers, and all of a sudden they knew something I didn't know. Donna and Vince Calora had come over there for their 50th wedding anniversary, and he had told them their story, but he hadn't told me the story. And so he comes in the room, and they put all these flowers on him and have him come up to do the story, and there he is up on the stage, big man, nice, wonderful man. And he says that he just finished his last PSA reading for the doctor, and it was 0.08, the lowest the doctor has seen in his office ever, 0.08. And he stood there talking about how healthy his prostate is, and he says, everything works. Every single man in this room needs cruciferous. And if your score is high, double, triple, go on for it. It doesn't matter. Jump on it. I talked to the man 2 nights ago. He said that he had a 16, just 2 nights ago here, and the doctor said, you are in serious trouble. And he immediately ran home and started on 6 a day. And he was, all of a sudden, he started urinating correctly within, about 4 or 5 days. In just about 10 days, he decided he wanted to go back and have another reading. His doctor said, we don't do blood tests that often. He says, do it again. And his PSA score had already come down. In 2 weeks, it had come down to 4. Now, we're getting some serious reports here, and you need to know what's happening. This is a product that has some dream-come-true answers, and it's exclusively GNLD. Aren't you proud of GNLD? Yes. For sure. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you, thank you, thank you.